Jake Thompson wiped the sweat from his forehead as he walked through the massive marketplace on Station Kepler 7. The air smelled like a mix of exotic spices, machine oil, and something sweet he couldn't quite identify. After 6 months working on the space station, he'd gotten used to the strange smells and even stranger sights. The marketplace stretched out like a small city under the station's artificial sky. Hundreds of aliens from dozens of different worlds crowded the walkways, buying and selling everything imaginable. Jake passed a stall selling glowing fruits that hummed when you touched them. Another vendor offered what looked like living jewelry that crawled up your arm. He'd learned not to ask too many questions. Jake was a mechanic, plain and simple. He fixed the life support systems that kept everyone breathing on this floating metal can in space. The pay was good, triple what he'd make back on Earth, and the work kept him busy. Today was his day off and he was just enjoying the chaos of the market. He stopped at a food stall run by a friendly four-armed alien named Bill. Yeah, the alien had picked a human name, which always made Jake smile. Bill sold something close to tacos, though the meat was definitely not from any Earth animal. The usual? Bill asked, his translator device making his voice sound slightly robotic. You know it, Jake said, handing over a few credits. While Bill prepared his food, Jake watched the crowd flow past. There were tall, thin aliens with skin like tree bark. Short, round ones that bounced when they walked. Some wore environmental suits because they breathed different gases. Others had so many eyes Jake couldn't count them all. After half a year he'd stopped staring. Well, mostly. A group of alien kids ran past, chasing each other in some kind of game. Jake smiled. No matter what planet you came from, kids were kids. They laughed in different frequencies, but the joy was the same. That's when he heard the scream. It cut through the marketplace noise like a knife. High-pitched, terrified, unmistakably a child in danger. Jake's head snapped toward the sound. His heart started pounding. About 30 feet away, near a cluster of cloth merchants, he saw her. A small alien child, no taller than his waist, with smooth purple skin and huge violet eyes. She couldn't have been more than 5 years old, maybe younger. She stood frozen in fear, her small hands trembling. 3 figures closed in around her. They were rough-looking aliens, different species, all wearing mismatched armor and carrying curved blades that gleamed under the market lights. Thugs. Every station had them. On the ground near the child lay an adult of the same species, purple-skinned and tall, wearing elegant robes now stained with blood. The child's guardian, Jake realized. Knocked out or worse. The marketplace around them had gone quiet. Dozens of aliens watched, but nobody moved. Nobody helped. Jake understood why. Getting involved meant trouble. These thugs probably worked for one of the gangs that controlled sections of the station. Smart people looked away. Jake wasn't feeling particularly smart. His feet moved before his brain caught up. He dropped the food Bill had just handed him and ran toward the child. His work boots pounded against the metal floor. The thugs hadn't noticed him yet. They were focused on the girl, saying something in a language his translator couldn't pick up fast enough. The child saw Jake coming. Her violet eyes went wide, unsure if he was another threat. Jake didn't slow down. He had maybe 2 seconds before those thugs realized what was happening. He used those seconds well. He dropped to his knees right in front of the small girl and wrapped both arms around her, pulling her tight against his chest. He curved his body over hers, making himself into a human shield. "It's okay," he whispered, though he knew she probably couldn't understand him. "I've got you." That's when the first blade hit. The pain was incredible. The curved knife caught him in the left shoulder, cutting through his work jacket and deep into muscle. Jake gasped but didn't let go of the child. She was shaking in his arms, making small crying sounds. The second blade struck his right side just below his ribs. Hot blood soaked through his shirt. Jake's vision blurred for a second, but he kept his grip firm. The child was so small, so fragile. He could feel her tiny heart racing against his chest. "Human, move," one of the thugs shouted in broken English. Jake didn't move. He tucked his head down, protecting the back of the child's skull with his chin. The third blade cut across his back. The fourth hit his left arm. Jake stopped trying to count. The pain became one massive wave that threatened to drown him. He could hear shouting now, running footsteps. Station security, maybe? Or more thugs. He couldn't tell anymore. 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 blades total. Jake's body screamed at him to let go, to curl up, to protect himself. But that would mean exposing the child. That wasn't happening. His arms felt like they weighed 1,000 pounds, but he kept them locked around the small purple body. The child had stopped crying. She was looking up at him with those huge violet eyes, not understanding why this strange alien was bleeding all over her, why he wouldn't let her go. Jake tried to smile at her. He wasn't sure if his face cooperated. Everything felt distant now, like he was underwater. The marketplace sounds faded. The pain faded too, which he knew wasn't a good sign. Armored figures rushed in. Station security guards in their black riot gear. Jake heard weapons firing, stun rounds probably. The thugs shouted and ran. Heavy boots surrounded him. Someone tried to pull the child away. Jake's arms wouldn't respond to his commands anymore. A security officer had to physically pry his fingers open. As the child was lifted away to safety, she reached back toward him, saying something in her musical language. Jake collapsed forward onto the cold market floor. Blood pooled around him, way too much blood. His blood. He should probably be worried about that. A face appeared above him. Human, thank God. A paramedic in a white uniform. "Stay with me, buddy," the paramedic said, pressing something against Jake's shoulder. "You're going to be fine." That was either really brave or really stupid. "Kid okay?" Jake managed to whisper. The paramedic glanced over at where the purple child was being checked by another medic. "Not a scratch on her." "You made sure of that?" Jake smiled. "Or tried to." His vision was going dark around the edges, like someone was slowly turning off the lights. The last thing he saw was the child, safe in a medic's arms, staring back at him with wonder in her violet eyes. Then the darkness took him and Jake Thompson knew nothing at all. Jake woke up to pain. Not the sharp, stabbing kind from the blades, but a deep, throbbing ache that seemed to pulse through every inch of his body. His mouth felt like sandpaper. His eyelids weighed about 50 pounds each. He forced them open anyway. The first thing he noticed was the ceiling. White tiles with soft blue lighting. A medical facility then. Good. That meant he wasn't dead, which was honestly better than he'd expected after losing that much blood. The second thing he noticed was the breathing. Not his own breathing, which was shallow and hurt like hell. No, this was different. Synchronized. Rhythmic. Like multiple people breathing in perfect unison. It reminded him of his military uncle's stories about honor guards at funerals. That thought wasn't comforting. Jake turned his head slowly, every muscle protesting the movement. What he saw made him wonder if he was hallucinating from the pain medication. 12 warriors stood around his hospital bed. Not humans. Not any species he recognized from his 6 months on the station. They were tall, at least 7 feet, with smooth purple skin that seemed to shimmer slightly under the lights. Each one wore black armor that looked like it had been crafted by someone who understood that protection and beauty weren't mutually exclusive. The armor had flowing lines, almost organic, with silver accents that caught the light. Their faces were angular, elegant, with those same huge violet eyes he remembered from the child. High cheekbones, strong jaws, and intricate tattoos that wound across their temples and down their necks. The tattoos seemed to glow faintly, pulsing with some kind of bioluminescence. But what really got Jake's attention were the weapons. Each warrior carried blades at their hips, some kind of energy weapons on their backs, and stood in postures that screamed professional soldier. These weren't mall security guards. These were the real deal. They stood perfectly still, eyes forward, not even blinking. It was unnatural. Jake had never seen anyone stand that still. At the foot of his bed stood a 13th figure, clearly the leader. She was taller than the others, with broader shoulders and more elaborate armor. A crimson sash crossed her chest, and her tattoos were more extensive, covering half her face in geometric patterns that seemed to tell a story. Her golden eyes locked onto his the moment he looked at her. "Ah," Jake said eloquently. His voice came out as a croak. "What's happening?" The leader stepped forward with fluid grace. When she moved, it was like watching water flow. Purposeful. Controlled. Deadly. She placed her fist over her heart in what was clearly a formal gesture. "You wake, human. This is well." Her voice was deep and rich, with an accent he couldn't place. The translator in his ear did its job, but couldn't quite capture the formal tone. "I am War Master Diana. The child you saved in the marketplace is my daughter, Emily." Jake's brain stuttered on that information. War Master. Daughter. The kid he'd grabbed was this warrior's child? Oh, he managed. Then his brain caught up with what mattered. "Is she okay?" "The kid, I mean. Emily. Is she hurt?" Something flickered across Diana's face. Surprise maybe. Her golden eyes studied him with new intensity. One of the warriors behind her shifted slightly, the first movement Jake had seen from any of them. "That is your first concern?" Diana asked slowly. "Even now, wounded as you are, in pain, you ask first about her welfare?" Jake didn't understand why that was surprising. "Well, yeah. I mean, that's why I did it, right? To keep her safe. Did it work? Is she okay?" Diana's expression softened in a way that made her look less like a terrifying warrior and more like a mother. She nodded, a very human gesture that the translator probably told her to use. Yes, Jake Thompson. Because of you she lives unharmed. Not a single scratch marks her skin. Not a bruise. Nothing. Diana's voice carried weight on those words. You took 8 blades. Any one of them could have killed you. Yet you did not release her. You did not move. You were a wall between my daughter and death. Before Jake could respond, the door to his room burst open. A human nurse rushed in, looking flustered and annoyed. He was a middle-aged guy with gray in his hair and the tired eyes of someone who'd worked medical for too long. War Master, please, I've told you 3 times already. My patient needs rest. Not a dozen armed warriors standing around his bed like it's some kind of military ceremony. The nurse stopped short when he saw Jake was awake. Oh, you're up. How's the pain on a scale of 1 to 10? Maybe a 6, Jake lied. It was more like an 8, but he'd been raised not to complain. The nurse gave him a look that said he didn't believe that for a second. Oh, I'm going to adjust your medication. He turned to Diana. War Master, seriously, this is a medical facility, not a throne room. Diana didn't move. Didn't even look at the nurse. We will not disturb his healing. We are simply present. Simply present, the nurse repeated, looking at the 12 armed warriors. Right. Sure. That's totally normal and not at all intimidating. He jabbed a finger at Diana. No weapons drawn. No threatening anyone. And if any of your people block my medical staff from doing their jobs, I don't care what kind of master you are, I'll have station security remove you. It was possibly the bravest thing Jake had ever seen, a middle-aged human nurse threatening a woman who looked like she could cut him in half without breaking a sweat. Diana simply nodded. Your terms are acceptable. We will not interfere with medical procedures. The nurse muttered something under his breath about aliens and protocol, then came over to check Jake's vitals. His hands were professional and gentle as he examined the bandages. You're lucky to be alive, kid, the nurse said quietly. 8 stab wounds. Lost about 40% of your blood volume. 2 of those blades nicked major blood vessels. Another ½ inch and you'd have bled out before security even arrived. He met Jake's eyes. What you did was incredibly brave and incredibly stupid. The kid's okay though, Jake said. So worth it. The nurse shook his head but smiled slightly. Yeah, I guess it was. He adjusted something on the 4-drip, and Jake felt the pain start to fade a bit. Get some rest. You've got a long recovery ahead. As the nurse left, Jake looked back at Diana and her warriors. They hadn't moved an inch during the entire exchange. It was creepy, honestly. You don't have to stay, Jake said. Really? I'm fine. You can go do whatever war masters do. We stay, Diana said simply. This is not negotiable. Over the next hour, Jake learned what that meant. The warriors stood in perfect formation, never sitting, never relaxing. They rotated positions occasionally, moving with silent precision. When another nurse came in to bring Jake food, 2 warriors flanked her the entire time, watching her every movement. When a maintenance worker knocked to check the room's air recycling unit, a warrior blocked the door until Diana personally inspected the worker's credentials. Jake tried to eat the bland hospital food while being watched by 12 elite alien warriors. It was possibly the most uncomfortable meal of his life. This is crazy, he finally said. I appreciate it, I guess, but why are you all here? I'm just a mechanic who got stabbed. I'll heal up and go back to fixing air scrubbers. Diana stepped closer to his bed. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of absolute conviction. You are not just anything, Jake Thompson. You took blades meant for royal blood. My daughter is not simply a child. She is heir to the House of Diana, 7th in line to the stellar throne, daughter of the War Master of the Blade Guard. She gestured to the warriors around them. These are the finest soldiers in 3 sectors. They have trained their entire lives for combat. Yet not one of them was there when my daughter needed protection. You were. A human. A mechanic. Someone with no training, no armor, no weapon. Just courage. Jake didn't know what to say to that. He'd just done what felt right. What anyone would do. Right? Diana seemed to read his thoughts. No, Jake Thompson. Not what anyone would do. What almost no one would do. And that is why we are here. The warriors didn't leave. Not that night. Not the next day. Not the day after that. Jake woke up on his 2nd morning in the hospital to find a fresh rotation of guards around his bed. Different faces, same purple skin and elaborate tattoos, same black armor, same unsettling stillness. He was starting to recognize some of them. There was a male warrior with a scar across his jaw who always stood to the left. A female with silver streaks in her dark hair who positioned herself near the door. Was weird. Really weird. Don't you guys ever get tired? Jake asked around noon on day 2. His pain had dulled to a manageable throb, and the boredom was starting to set in. The scarred warrior's eyes flicked to him for just a second, then back to watching the door. That was it. No response. These people took their job seriously. Diana arrived an hour later, moving through the door like she owned the place. Maybe she did, for all Jake knew. The warriors snapped to even more rigid attention if that was possible. How's the healing? Diana asked, stopping at the foot of his bed. Better, Jake admitted. The doctors say I can probably walk a bit tomorrow. But seriously, you don't need to keep posting guards. I'm safe here. Diana raised one elegant eyebrow. It was amazing how much skepticism she could pack into that small gesture. Safe? 3 days ago, assassins attempted to kidnap my daughter in a crowded marketplace with hundreds of witnesses. They stabbed you 8 times in broad daylight. And you think you are safe? Jake hadn't thought about it that way. Wait, they were trying to kidnap her? I thought they were just robbers or something. No. They were professionals. Hired by enemies of my house. Diana's voice went cold. They knew exactly who Emily was. They planned to take her, use her as leverage against me. Her golden eyes locked onto Jake's. You destroyed that plan. A human mechanic with no combat training defeated 3 professional assassins simply by refusing to move. I didn't defeat anybody, Jake protested. I just got stabbed a lot. You protected the target. They failed their mission. Station security captured 2 of them. The 3rd died resisting arrest. Diana leaned forward slightly. You won, Jake Thompson. And now those who hired the assassins know your face. They know you interfered with their plans. That makes you a target. Jake's stomach dropped. He hadn't considered that. He just wanted to save a kid. He didn't sign up for being on some alien crime lord's hit list. Diana must have seen the fear on his face because her expression softened. This is why we stay. Not as a courtesy. As a necessity. You are under the protection of the Blade Guard now. No harm will come to you while we draw breath. A young nurse came in with medication and Jake watched the security protocol in action. 2 warriors moved to flank her immediately. A 3rd scanned her ID badge. A 4th watched her hands as she prepared the injection. The nurse looked terrified, her hands shaking slightly as she administered the shot. Thanks, Jake said gently, trying to give her a reassuring smile. She nodded quickly and practically ran from the room. You're scaring the hospital staff, Jake pointed out. They will adapt, Diana said without concern. That afternoon, Jake got his first real demonstration of what having an honor guard meant. He needed to use the bathroom, a short walk from his bed. Simple enough. Except 2 warriors immediately moved to support him on each side. 2 more swept the bathroom before he entered. 1 stood guard outside the door the entire time. This is insane, Jake muttered, shuffling back to bed with purple-skinned soldiers holding his arms. By day 3, Jake had figured out the rotation schedule. Shifts changed every 6 hours like clockwork. 12 warriors always present, with Diana visiting at least twice daily. They brought him water before he realized he was thirsty. When he mentioned being hungry for something other than hospital food, a warrior disappeared and returned 30 minutes later with actual Earth food. A burger. A real, honest-to-God cheeseburger from somewhere on the station. How did you even find this? Jake asked, staring at the food like it was treasure. The warrior, a female named Beth, simply nodded. You mentioned yesterday you missed Earth food. I researched human cuisine. Jake took a bite and nearly cried. After 6 months of alien approximations, this tasted like home. Things got interesting when Danny Chin, another human mechanic Jake worked with, came to visit. Danny got about 3 steps into the room before 4 warriors had him surrounded, weapons not drawn but hands resting on hilts. Whoa, easy. Danny raised his hands. I just work with Jake. We fix air scrubbers together. Diana appeared from the corner where she'd been reviewing something on a data pad. She studied Danny with those intense golden eyes. You are Daniel Chin. Age 32. Born on Earth, New York sector. Employed by station maintenance for 14 months. Clean record. No criminal associations. Danny's jaw dropped. How do you know all that? We know everything about everyone who might approach Jake Thompson, Diana said simply. She nodded and the warrior stepped back. You may visit. 15 minutes. Danny hurried over to Jake's bed, glancing nervously at the armed aliens. Dude, what the hell is going on? The entire station is talking about you. They're saying you saved some alien princess or something. Not a princess, Jake corrected. War Master's daughter. And I didn't really save her, I just got in the way. You took 8 knife wounds, man. That's not getting in the way, that's being a hero. Danny lowered his voice. Are you in trouble? Is that why all the soldiers? No, it's complicated. They're protecting me. From what? Jake glanced at Diana, who nodded permission. The guys who attacked the kid? They were hired by someone. Professional hit squad. Diana thinks they might come after me for screwing up their plan. Danny went pale. Oh man. Oh man. Jake, you need to request a transfer off this station. Get somewhere safe. I'm safer here than anywhere, Jake said, gesturing to the 12 elite warriors. I don't think anyone's getting through that. As if to prove his point, a drunk station worker stumbled past Jake's door, shouting something incoherent. The man lurched toward the doorway, maybe curious about all the armored aliens. He didn't make it 2 steps inside. 2 warriors moved so fast Jake barely saw them. One had the drunk's arm twisted behind his back. The other had swept his legs out from under him. The drunk hit the floor face first, completely restrained in under 2 seconds. Intoxicated, one warrior reported calmly. No weapons detected. Possible threat level 0. Remove him, Diana ordered. The warriors hauled the drunk out of the room. Jake heard him being handed off to station security in the hallway, still too confused to understand what had just happened. Danny stared at the door. Okay. Yeah. You're definitely safe. After Danny left, Jake lay in bed thinking about his situation. 3 days ago he'd been a nobody. A mechanic who fixed broken equipment and kept to himself. Now he had an elite alien military unit guarding him around the clock. A war master personally checking on his recovery. And apparently, enemies he didn't even know about. Diana, he called out. She was always somewhere nearby. She appeared at his bedside. Yes. Why are you really doing all this? And don't say it's just because I protected Emily. There's got to be more to it. Diana was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice carried a weight he hadn't heard before. Among my people, children are sacred. Not just our own children. All children. We believe that a society is judged by how it protects its most vulnerable. She met his eyes. You are not of our species. You gained nothing by intervening. You could have walked away and no one would have blamed you. But you did not walk away. You threw yourself between death and a child you did not know, asking nothing in return. That's just being decent, Jake said. No, Diana said firmly. That is being extraordinary. In all my years as war master, I have seen soldiers hesitate when facing death. I have seen trained warriors calculate the odds before acting. But you? You did not hesitate. You did not calculate. You simply moved. She placed her fist over her heart again. That is why we are here, Jake Thompson. Not out of obligation. Out of respect. You showed us what true courage looks like, and it came from the most unexpected place. A human mechanic with a good heart. Jake didn't know what to say to that. He'd never thought of himself as courageous. He'd just done what felt right. Diana seemed to understand his silence. Rest now. Bill. Tomorrow you walk. The day after, we begin teaching you how to defend yourself properly. Wait, what? But Diana was already walking away, leaving Jake to contemplate a future that suddenly looked very different from fixing air scrubbers. On the 5th day, Jake managed to walk the length of his hospital room without feeling like he was going to collapse. The doctors were amazed at his recovery rate. Apparently, Diana had requested the best medical treatment available on the station, including some advanced healing technology that cost more than Jake made in a year. You're healing remarkably well, Dr. Patterson told him during morning rounds. She was an older woman from Earth, practical and no nonsense. Another week and you'll be cleared for light duty. Though I'd recommend at least a month before you go back to crawling through maintenance tunnels. Jake nodded, doing his best to ignore the 6 warriors currently watching the doctor's every move. He'd gotten used to it, sort of. You could get used to anything if it happened long enough. Diana arrived just as Dr. Patterson was leaving. But this time she wasn't alone. The small purple child who walked beside her made Jake's heart skip a beat. Emily. The kid he'd taken 8 blades for. She looked healthy and happy, wearing a cute little outfit that reminded Jake of something his niece back on Earth might wear. Her huge violet eyes went wide when she saw him. That's him? Emily asked in her own language. Jake's translator earpiece picked it up. That's the human who saved me? Yes, little star, Diana said gently. That is Jake Thompson. Emily didn't wait for permission. She ran straight across the room, and Jake barely had time to brace himself before she crashed into him. Her small arms wrapped around his waist, careful to avoid the bandages still covering his torso. The force of her hug pushed Jake back a step, and instantly 3 warriors moved forward, hands on weapons. Diana raised one hand and they froze. "It's okay," Jake said quickly, then looked down at the child hugging him like he was the most important person in the galaxy. "Hey there, kiddo. You doing okay?" Emily looked up at him and Jake saw tears in those big eyes. "You got hurt because of me. Mom showed me the footage from the marketplace cameras. You let those bad men stab you so they wouldn't hurt me." Jake's throat tightened. He knelt down slowly, ignoring the pull of healing wounds, until he was at eye level with her. "Hey, listen. I'm fine, see? Takes more than a few scratches to keep a human down." He smiled. "And I'd do it again in a heartbeat. You're safe. That's all that matters." Emily threw her arms around his neck and Jake hugged her back. Over the kid's shoulder, he saw Diana watching them with an expression he couldn't quite read. Pride maybe. Or something deeper. When Emily finally pulled back, she was smiling through her tears. "Mom says you're very brave. She says humans don't usually fight like warriors, but you did anyway." "Well, I'm not really a warrior," Jake admitted. "I fix air conditioning units and life support systems. Pretty boring stuff compared to what your mom does." "I don't think you're boring," Emily said seriously. "I think you're a hero." Jake didn't know what to say to that. Luckily Diana stepped in. "Emily, why don't you show Jake what you brought him?" The child's face lit up. She pulled a small object from her pocket and held it out to Jake. It was a crystal of some kind, about the size of a quarter, that glowed with a soft blue light. Intricate patterns swirled inside it like frozen smoke. "It's a memory crystal," Emily explained. "I recorded a message for you. So you'll always remember that I'm grateful. Mom says it can play in any language." Jake took the crystal carefully. It was warm in his palm, pulsing gently with light. "Thank you, Emily. This is really special." Emily beamed at him, then turned to her mother. "Can I show him my drawings?" Diana smiled, a real genuine smile that transformed her stern warrior face into something softer. "Perhaps later, little star. Jake needs to rest. And we need to speak about important matters." Emily nodded, gave Jake one more quick hug, then skipped over to where one of the warriors stood. The warrior, the scarred male Jake had mentally nicknamed Alex, broke his rigid stance to kneel down and let Emily show him something on her data pad. The contrast between the deadly soldier and the cheerful child was almost funny. Diana moved to stand beside Jake's bed. Her expression had gone serious again. "Jake Thompson, we need to discuss your future." That sounded ominous. Jake sat down on the edge of his bed. "Okay. You saved the heir to one of the most powerful houses in our civilization. This creates what we call a blood debt. It is not something we take lightly." Diana clasped her hands behind her back, every inch the military commander. "My people wish to honor you. Properly." "You've already honored me plenty," Jake said. "The medical care alone probably cost a fortune. And the protection detail and the food and everything else. That is basic courtesy for someone who saved my daughter's life," Diana said. "What I am offering now is something more. Much more." She paused, and Jake got the feeling she was choosing her words carefully. "We would like to offer you a place among our people. Not as a visitor. As one of us." Jake blinked. "I'm not sure I understand." "Full citizenship in our house. Training with the Blade Guard if you wish it. A position of honor and respect. Land resources status. You would want for nothing." Diana's golden eyes studied his face. "You would be under our protection for life. No enemy would dare touch you. Your family on Earth would be protected as well. Any children you might have would be raised as nobility." Jake's mind reeled. It was an incredible offer. The kind of thing that happened in movies, not to regular guys who fix broken equipment for a living. "That's very generous," he said slowly. "But I don't know anything about being a warrior. Or nobility or whatever. I'm just a mechanic." "Just," Diana repeated, and there was something sharp in her voice. "You keep using that word. Just a mechanic. Just doing what anyone would do. Just getting in the way." She stepped closer. "Jake Thompson, you faced 8 blades for a stranger's child. Most trained soldiers would have hesitated. Calculated the risk. Looked for backup. But you simply acted. That is not just anything. That is the mark of a true warrior." "But I don't want to be a warrior," Jake said honestly. "I mean, no offense to you and your people. You're clearly amazing at what you do. But fighting isn't my thing. I like fixing stuff. Making things work again. It's simple. Straightforward. Diana tilted her head, studying him like he was a puzzle she couldn't quite solve. You do not wish for glory? For status and power? Not really, Jake admitted. I've got a simple life. I work, I save money, I video call my family back on Earth once a week. My brother's got 2 kids I've never met in person. I'm saving up to buy a little house near them, maybe open my own repair shop someday. He shrugged. That's all I want. Nothing fancy. One of the warriors near the door made a small sound. When Jake looked over, the warrior's expression was shocked. Like Jake had just said something completely incomprehensible. Diana was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer. You truly mean that? You risked your life, took 8 blades, earned the gratitude of one of the most powerful families in 3 sectors, and all you want is to return to fixing equipment and living near your family. Yeah, Jake said. Is that weird? Weird? Diana actually smiled. No, Jake Thompson. It is rare. Refreshingly, beautifully rare. She glanced at Emily, who was still chattering away to the warrior. Most beings who do something heroic immediately seek to leverage it. They want rewards, status, recognition. But you just want to go home and be with the people you love. Well, when you put it like that, it sounds kind of boring, Jake said. It sounds human, Diana said. And perhaps that is what makes your species so remarkable. You do extraordinary things and then simply wish to return to ordinary life. She placed her fist over her heart. I respect your choice, Jake Thompson. Though my offer will remain open should you ever change your mind. Emily came running back over. Mom, can Jake come have dinner with us when he's better? Please? Diana looked at Jake, one eyebrow raised in question. Jake thought about it. He'd turned down nobility and warrior training, but having dinner with the kid he'd saved? That seemed nice. Normal even. Sure, kiddo. I'd like that. Emily squealed with happiness and grabbed his hand. You have to meet my grandfather. And my aunts. And I want to show you my garden. I grow Terran flowers. Do you know what roses are? I do, Jake said, grinning. My mom used to grow them back on Earth. As Emily chattered on about her garden, Jake caught Diana watching them with that same unreadable expression. This time, though, he thought he understood it. He'd given her daughter back. That was something no amount of status or training could repay. Maybe he didn't need to be a warrior. Maybe just being himself was enough. 2 weeks later, Jake walked out of the hospital on his own 2 feet. Well, mostly on his own. The doctor still wanted him to take it easy, which was hard to do with 2 Blade Guard warriors shadowing his every move. Their names were Alex and Beth, and they'd been assigned as his permanent security detail. Alex was the scarred male warrior Jake had noticed on day 1. Beth was younger, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Both of them took their job way too seriously. I'm just going to my apartment, Jake said as they flanked him in the hallway. It's literally a 10-minute walk. I think I'll be okay. Threats do not announce themselves, Alex said in his deep, formal voice. We accompany you. Jake had learned not to argue. These warriors were as stubborn as they were skilled. His apartment was exactly how he'd left it 2 weeks ago. Small, cramped, filled with spare parts and repair manuals. A coffee maker that only worked half the time. A bed that was too short for his frame. Posters of Earth landscapes on the walls because he missed home. Alex and Beth swept the entire place in 30 seconds, checking behind furniture and scanning for threats. In Jake's tiny studio apartment, where the biggest danger was tripping over a toolbox. All clear, Beth announced. Thanks, Jake said dryly. I was really worried about assassins hiding behind my laundry. Beth didn't crack a smile. These warriors had zero sense of humor. Jake figured life would slowly return to normal. He'd rest for another week, then get back to work fixing air scrubbers and cooling systems. The Blade Guard would eventually realize he wasn't worth protecting 24/7, and things would go back to the way they were. He was wrong on all counts,